once again. I am very, very happy and congratulations. I'm with GLYN HUGHES, the CEO or the manager director of TIACA for more than 10 months. How are you, GLYN?
I'm very good, thank you, Juan, and thank you for inviting me to speak to your great audience today. I think you guys have a wonderful network, and I hope everybody is safe and healthy.
Thank you very much, GLYN. We met in Toronto in a TIACA conference, but you are very famous. You're one of the most interesting person in the air cargo. How do you feel today with the new situation in TIACA, like director, no?
Well, first of all, I have to say thank you very much for the very kind words. I just look at it that I've been very fortunate to be in this industry for 38 years now. And, you know, I'm very pleased when I left IATA earlier this year. I was very pleased to be able to join TIACA at such an important time for our society, let alone our industry. And what I'd like to do at the very beginning, before I start talking about TIACA, is I'd like to actually kind of just extend a debt of thank you to all of your members, because I work closely with a lot of international organizations, PAHO and others, for example, and it's only because of the great men and women of the air cargo industry that have really kept the world going for these last 22 months. You know, where many people have been sheltering at home, it's the freight forwarders, the ground handlers, the truckers, you know, the airport operators, the airlines, the people on the front line who were out there every day. Sadly, many of these people got sick, but they still put their health on the line to help society. So I know your members and you guys work so closely together, etc. So I want to say thank you to and congratulations to all the great work that you guys have done. And that really is why part of why I joined TIACA, because it represents the air cargo supply chain across the board. It allows me to kind of continue to work with great organizations and great people like you and your members so that we can continue to promote to governments, to regulators, to investors, to everybody that needs to know how important air cargo is, not just about saving lives during COVID, but about economic recovery, about economic prosperity, about the UN sustainability goals. And I think for me, that is the great work that we do as an industry. And as TIACA, we hope to be able to support that going forward.
Great. You are working a lot in sustainability and teaching new generations to connect to the air cargo world, no?
Absolutely. I think sustainability is going to be increasingly more important because people are looking at, and I have to define, sustainability is not just about the environment. That's an important part, but the way that we define sustainability, it's about what we call 3 Ps. It's looking after the planet, looking after the people, but also making sure that there is a prosperity, that businesses can be successful and countries can be successful. And it's only by knitting everything together that we can attract the next generation of leaders, because the next generation are going to want to make an impact. And air cargo is probably, to me, the industry that makes a bigger impact than almost any other industry out there, whether or not it's saving people's lives with PPE or vaccine or e-commerce. You know, I think my daughter's Christmas would be 0 if it wasn't for e-commerce. So, you know, the air cargo industry needs to be there to support all of these things going forward. And it's so important.
Wow. According to your point of view, what will be the vision of TIACA and what is your vision of the future of international logistics, GLYN?
That's a wonderful question. First of all, I think I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to look at what I think the future of the logistics is first, and then come back to our role as TIACA of how we can support that. I think what we've seen in the last 2 years is going to change the way that the air cargo industry moves forward. I think the 50% reliance on passenger belly aircraft or belly capacity for air cargo is going to take many, many years before it comes back to 50%. Right now, it's about 80%, 75% on freighters and 25% on belly. As passenger networks resume, it will slowly recover, but I think the role of freighters going forward is very important. I think the global economy is doing incredibly well, but the role of the freight forwarder is going to become even more important. You know, a few years ago, people said, well, what role does a freight forwarder play? You know, we don't need travel agents anymore. I think today the freight forwarder is more important than they've ever been before, because regulations are complex, getting access to capacity is complex, pricing is difficult, the modal challenges, it's not as if you've got plenty of container space on ships and you can move cargo from air to ocean or rail, etc. Everybody's struggling. Truck drivers or enough truck drivers is an issue in many countries. Adequate staff at airports and container ports and seaports is difficult. So I think the role of the freight forwarder is going to be much more important going forward. The role of the industry is going to be more important going forward. And I'll give one statistic. I spoke a lot recently to different organizations who were talking about the grounding of passenger aircraft is destroying economies for tourism, etc. And I said, look, let me just remind people that in the year 2019, tourism generated $850 billion worldwide in terms of international spend by tourists in a country. Very important, 850 billion. But in the same time frame, the money generated by air cargo exports was 6.4 trillion. It was 8 times more valuable to a country. So from a country's prosperity perspective, to helping the developing nations, whether or not it's in Southeast Asia, in Central Europe, in Africa, in Latin America, nations that are actually growing their economy, it's critical to have air cargo and ocean cargo. It's critical to have a growing economy based on exports. So that's where the role of this industry is incredibly important. As I say, as things get more complex, the importance of this industry gets more important. And that's the role of TIACA, is that we want to be there to support. Like you, we like to bring people together who have a common vision and common problems that we can kind of resolve. If we hear people's problems and issues, we can help try and address them or bring them to the attention of people internationally. We have a couple of events next year where we will again bring people together, whether or not it's in San Francisco in March or in Miami in
November. I am working on that.
It'll be a great event. It's our Air Cargo Forum. That should be a big celebration as well. So I think that's also what's important about this industry, is that nobody can do it alone. You know, we all need to work together. So collaboration is key. And as you mentioned quite rightly, sustainability is one of the important factors that we're going to be looking at going forward, of how we can bring more sustainability programs to help the industry.
When we have one of the number ones in the market, I can't stop to ask you about what is your opinion about the crisis of container, the logistic crisis during the COVID, the space crisis, all that happened during these 2 years. Because I remember very well, we are in Toronto. We believe that the party never finished. Everything keeps growing and growing, and now few players are trying to stop this or doing strange things. What is your opinion?
Well, I mean, it's another good question, because it's a very strange time now. Because if we go back to 2017, 2018, we had the US was in a trade dispute with China. So there were barriers going up, there were tariffs going up. The US was in dispute with the EU. So again, they were looking at taxing French cheese, Harley Davidsons, Scottish whiskey. I mean, and all those factors slow down trade. And it makes manufacturers say, well, if it's going to be difficult for me to move my product from one side of the country, one side of the world, to the consumer base in another side of the world, they say, I might as well just produce near where the consumer is. That's not good for air cargo. That's not good for ocean cargo. We need an open global economy. And I think that we then had the situation of COVID, where all of a sudden people said, okay, forget all the problems. We need to be able to move face masks, personal protective equipment, medical supplies, whatever the problem, whatever the issue, we've got to get rid of them, because we've got to move these products all around the world. So that's kind of where the demand started coming in. Then the container lines obviously have had a few years, so they started coordinated their sailings, so they were actually having less sailings, but the sailings were becoming busier. And now we have the situation where I know it's improved a little bit in Long Beach and LA, but still container ships at any one point, there's about 10% of all container ships just sitting at the sea off a port because they can't get a berthing spot and they can't get in. And when they get in, there aren't enough longshoremen to offload. There's not enough rolling stock from the railway systems to get them into land. There's not enough truck drivers. So it's slowing the cargo down. It's making things very expensive. It's getting difficult to access capacity. It's incredibly stressful. You know, there's some of your members have probably been operating at 100% capacity for 2 years. I mean, in the old days, we had 2 seasonal peaks, and then we had a nice summer where we could relax and take it easy. Now it's just peak period, peak period, peak period. So I think going forward, I hope the stress is relieved. I hope we get to some more normality of equilibrium. From an air cargo perspective, there's a lot more freighters or passenger aircraft being converted into freighters, so there should be a lot more capacity. This has been a real problem for Latin America, where so much of the cargo before moved in the bellies of the passenger aircraft, which just were grounded. So I know you're still dramatically down on capacity. I see that a lot more container ships are being ordered, but slightly smaller, which should actually be a little bit more flexible and agile. So it should mean that capacity should be a little bit easier to get hold of. So I think we're going to probably be in for another 12 months worth of still quite stressful times where we get the equilibrium balance. But I think going forward, I'm very encouraged by the fact that the global economy seems to be doing well. You know, most major economies actually have recovered quite well from the COVID impact in terms of an economic perspective. There's still quite a lot to be done to go forward. The global consumer base is very mobile, so they're looking at e-commerce, which is great for air cargo. So I think going forward, all of the logistics industry has a good future, but I still think, sadly, for the next 12 months, there's going to be a lot more need for flexible, agile responses to things that happen in the marketplace.
GLYN, thank you very much for your time. I know that you are full of things to do. Really appreciate your time, and I hope to see you soon.
I look forward to it, Juan. I look forward to it in Miami or maybe Intermodal beforehand. But no, I look forward to seeing you again and your great membership. So I wish everybody a good celebration at the end of the year, and again, a healthy 2022. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.